Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and investors. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we take a look at what's going on in the precious metals market, industrial metals market, stocks of companies that surround and work within this industry of recycling and scrapping and such, and other issues that come up during the week. It is great to be here and great to be talking to you again on a regular basis. Welcome into the chat, Truck Fan, E-Waste Mike, David Philly, Scrapping Irish, Roger at CU Scrapping, E-Waste Owen, great to have you all here. Looks like Truck Fan is going to be heading off to Denmark later on and play with the reverse vending machine. You know, I've had some experiences with reverse vending machines too. They would just take my money and not give me anything. But I think you're talking about something a little different. So we're also have a little better setup today because as I was doing some more unpacking of things, I found my coffee heater. So it is great for keeping my coffee warm while the show goes on. So that's really good because, you know, the coffee can cool off pretty quick, but that warmer does a great job of keeping it at just the right temperature for drinking. So I'm glad I found that. It really helps a lot to get through things. All right. So we have some really cool stuff coming up in this stream. We're going to be talking silver. We had some requests for it last week, so we're going to be talking silver. And whenever I talk about silver, I like talking about aluminum. Why? Because they're both what people refer to as white metals, so as opposed to reddish metals. So we're going to be talking white metals here, silver and aluminum. Got some interesting telecom related companies to go over in the stock market discussion. And as always, our safety note is based on some experiences from the week. Well, without any other ado, let's dive right into our precious metals discussion and see what's going on with silver. Now, as always, this is the APMEX chart. Once again, disclaimer, I am not sponsored by APMEX. I get no advertising dollars from them. It's just a company that I have used along with others to buy and sell my precious metals. If you're new to this channel or on the rebroadcast, you should know that I am a firm believer in having a certain amount of precious metals in your portfolio. How much depends on your risk tolerance. But the one thing that I am very firm about is I don't ever want to have the paper equivalencies to silver and gold. I want the real silver and gold. So when I buy silver and gold, I'm buying bullion. I don't get into collecting the fancy coins and such. To me, that's just premium for no reason. So I do like buying 1, 5, and 10 ounce rounds and bars from reputable mints and reputable companies like Amex. Amex. So here we are with the APMEX chart that we're used to seeing, and we can see that silver is up in the 30, almost pushing $31 an ounce. So this is some really good pricing here. If we look at the 1 month, we can see that we're up at highs. In the 3 month, we've had some better pricing in the last 3 months, up in the 31s. So it looks like we're going to be pushing up against that 31 bar again. Year to date, our highs were 32.40. So, you know, we're starting to hit that ceiling, pushing that ceiling. We got a little bit to get up there, but, you know, we're kind of heading in that direction. And for the 1 year, well, we're doing pretty good. We're climbing back up to those highs from earlier in the year. 5 year, we're below the 5 year peaks, but, you know, like I said, we're getting up there. In the all-time highs, though, man, we're not anywhere near this almost $50 an ounce period up here, 47 something, 41. In this period, I actually sold some silver for $50 an ounce. So this was a real nice time here. Looking forward to those prices coming back again. But this is something that I want to show you here, because one of the things that we like to do is we like to talk about where the price is going, give some sort of forecast for what we can expect. So I found another chart that I think is useful for that. It's from this group called Trading Economics. Now, you may recall that this is the group that I use when I've been looking at the industrial metals. And I played around this week with looking at how they handle some of the precious metals. And there's some things here that I like. One of the things is that I can put candlestick charts on here. And you can see that this is the 1 week chart, similar to what we were looking at in APMEX. And it's broken down into 15-minute segments. So what that means is here, let's zoom in a little bit here. And each one of these candlesticks represents 15 minutes of trading. And the reason that I like this is because I can see things like this period right in here. So if I was one of these people that was doing day trading or wanted to, try to push the market, I would have been watching this kind of up and down movement in here. And then I would have seen this little drop going on here. And when I saw these indicators right in here, that would have suggested to me that the prices may be starting to climb. And sure enough, they started climbing. And then as I see the red candlesticks show up, and then I see these candlesticks that have very little trading going on. Some people refer to that one right there as a spinning top because there's almost no variance in there in the open and close. That would have said prices are probably going to start coming down. Sure enough, they came down. We climbed back up again, and we're kind of in another little period of up and down. But that's because this is just, not a whole lot of trading goes on here on the weekends. So later going into the weekend. So I really like this candlestick chart that I can do with Trading Economics page. And if we look at the 1 month period, you'll notice now that the interval has gone up to 1 hour. You can't have the intervals too short because then it's hard to, the data just doesn't tell you a whole lot. And if the trading intervals are too big, then again, it smooths things out way too much. So here's the 6 month chart on this. And, we can see we've got some volatility going on in here. Now, again, I'm not a day trader. So I was only pointing this out because I know some of you like to move quick in the markets. I'm not one of those folks, but, I look at this and I say, all right, so if I'm looking at the 6 month interval, I see that prices have been climbing. And you can see this is a full day of trading here, and if prices are going up. So this suggests to me that the prices will still keep climbing for silver. So if you were thinking about selling your silver, then you might want to be holding off here because, you might get it might get up to 31. I don't think 32, but it might get up to $31 an ounce for the silver. So that's kind of a way to help you with this. And I think we're gonna, and I'd like to know what you all think. Should I just shift over to using this kind of chart from Trading Economics so we can have a little more detailed discussion about the ups and downs and where this is going for pricing? What do you all think? And I'm also curious, what are you all going to do for your silver in the week or two coming up here? As for me, I'm probably not going to sell right now, although I'm tempted. I am tempted to sell some of my silver. I'm getting the operations started back up. So cash flow is negative right now because I'm putting money out for spaces to lease, buying inventory to get inventory built back up again. So right now the cash flow is negative. And so, I might think about selling off some silver and, having that to help me get my inventory built back up and cover some of these initial costs as I get my operations started. So, E-Waste Jill, welcome. Great to have you in here. Let's see, who else got in here? Bruce Napier showed up. And let's see, anybody else show up while I was busy? Chad Patrick Williams, always great to have you here. So, always nice to have everybody joining the discussion. E-Waste Jill likes that chart. All right, very cool. Jay Wilson's in the house. Great to have you here. So, yeah, Jill, I like this chart too. I think it's a bit more informative. It gives us a way to talk about what's going on in the market and seeing what other professional traders are thinking. Because trust me, that's one of the things that I like about these kind of charts is you got people out there that do this for a living. They're trading all the time. Some of them represent some very big money kind of companies. And if you take that wrap together, there's a lot of intelligence going in there if you know how to read what the market's telling you. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll sell some silver. Is anybody planning on buying? Prices seem pretty high for buying right now. So, I can understand some of you might want to sell, but I'd be really surprised if anybody's buying right now. All right. So, Truck Fan's famous question, he asked this, and he'll ask it again during Scrapping Irish's live stream. I can almost guarantee you any bloopers. No, not really this week, but I tell you what, we're getting ready to have some bloopers tomorrow because the pod shows up tomorrow, and it has to be gone the next day. So I have to unload the entire pod tomorrow. I'm not terribly concerned about this because even though it took me a couple days to get it loaded, the loading process is always a little bit slower because you're trying to fit things in, balance the weight, that kind of stuff. So loading is always a little bit slower process. And I've got the really heavy, ugly stuff is right at the front. So once I get the heavy stuff, which is the big deck scale, and as some of you may remember, those great big cell tower frames that I use as for stacking pallets. Once I get that really big heavy stuff out of the way, the rest of it is workbenches, boxes, tools, stuff that should go pretty quickly. So I'm not that concerned as long as I don't break anything like my body in the process of getting those heavy things out of there. Oh, man. So, all right, let's see. Roger, what are you up to here? I'm going to send Scrapping on the Fly about 5 pounds of silver contacts to process. Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's an entirely different twist on the silver, but that's a good thing to do. And boy, being able to get the actual silver from the contacts is a great way to stack up some silver for you. Yeah, it gets to be a little bit of a challenge when it's ready to sell time. But there's always somebody out there who's willing to buy that. And you may not get as much as spot, but there's usually people out there that you can sell to. That's going to be a good thing for you to do, Roger. Great to see that, man. All right, so safety. Our safety note for the week. We had a lot of rain this week, and so the rain is what is driving this week's safety note. I got to thinking about it while I was driving down the road in the rain. Depending upon where you live, sometimes you don't always appreciate the risks that rain can present. So let's go through some of the issues that rain can cause for us and what we have to do to account for that. Now, the obvious thing that rain does is it makes the roads slippery. Rain water has a much lower coefficient of friction than concrete or asphalt. So when the roads get wet, they will become slippy. Now, depending upon where you live, this can be exacerbated by roads that are dry for a long time, get a lot of oil built up on them. And then when it rains, you have not just water, but you have oil in water, and that makes things even worse. So, bottom line, when it rains on the roads, they're going to get slippery. So the best thing to do is just slow down. Now, I know that's anathema for some of you. Like Mrs. Shark, she's like, what do you mean slow down? So, when it's raining, you want to slow down simply because you're going to have less traction on the road. That means it's going to take you longer to stop. You might actually skid or slip easier, those kind of things. The other issue that can occur is when you get enough water building up on the road, and if you're going fast enough, you can hydroplane. All right, so water on the road plus speed, and you can literally lift the tire tread off of the road, and now you have no traction whatsoever, and you're just you've got the potential to start sliding out of control when that happens. So the best thing to do in the rain is slow down. Now, I've seen the comments here, and everybody is spot on correct. Your tread wear is very, very important. Hey, Ralph, great to have you here. And we can talk tire safety in another point, because there's a lot of other factors involved there. But your tires are most good tires are designed to move water away from the tread so that you have traction. But if you have worn down the tread, then you won't get that water being pushed away. You won't get the grip that you need, and you increase the probability of losing control of your vehicle or slipping. So your tread wear, your tread life on your vehicle is very, very important. And there's all kinds of little tricks that you can use. Like here in the United States, we say that if you can put a US penny in the tread and see Lincoln's head, then your tread life is too low. Your tread wear is too much, depending upon how you want to put it. There's actual measurements that are necessary, but that's a little trick that we use here in the US anyway for a quick check on our tread life. So that combination is really, really important when it rains. Now, there's another issue that you have to deal with, and that is flooding. A lot of people don't understand that your car can float. It still amazes me that there's people out there that don't understand this. I mean, they say to themselves, well, this car is really heavy. How could this possibly float? And they see movies where cars sink in the water and that kind of stuff. They don't think about the fact that there are 4, potentially 5 great big balloons on the bottom part of your vehicle called tires. And those will exert an upward buoyancy. And it only takes between 6 inches and a foot, so 6 to 12 inches of water to float a lot of the vehicles, a lot of the cars that are out on the road these days. Then you add to that the fact that water is probably going to be moving because, you've got flooding, so that water is moving. And now you add the force of the water up against the body of the vehicle, and all that water is pushing against the cross section of your vehicle. And 2 feet of rushing water can move even the biggest, heaviest SUVs and trucks that are out there on the market. So, I mean, unless you're driving something like a deuce and a half or a tank or an anti-personnel carrier or something like that, armored personnel carrier, you shouldn't be taking on rushing water. The common phrase that you'll hear repeated on the weather channels is don't drown, go around. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. Just don't risk it. If you can't see the road, if you're approaching a road and there's a big low spot and you see water coming over it, and you can't see the bottom of the road, man, you just turn around, man. Just don't take the risk. It's not worth it. And pay attention to it, and make sure you share that with folks that you know, especially new drivers, young folks who haven't experienced it yet. Make sure that they understand that as well. So, we can talk about some of the other hazards like floating debris, things of that nature that can occur with rain. The fact that if it's raining heavy enough, it can impede your vision, even with your windshield wipers going real strong, which brings up the point, you want to maintain your windshield wipers. Whenever you, at some interval, like some people will replace their windshield wipers every time they change their oil. If you ever see that you're starting to get streaks and lines, then it's a really good idea to change those the blades on your windshield wipers, because that can have a huge impact on your ability to see when it's raining. So, just really, really important to pay attention to the rain, slow down, turn around, don't drown, and remember that, no matter where you're going right now, your life is not worth going that much faster or trying to risk getting through flooding water. So a lot of good comments here on the rain, and hey, Electronic Scrapper, great to see you here, man. So we've had a lot of good comments here about the rain and flooding and some of the concerns that folks have had and seen. So really appreciate those comments. Yeah, Truck Fan, you're right. A lot of the glass companies will replace the blades either for free, or that might be a little bit of an adder, because in some places here in the United States, if you have a crack, a divot the size of a quarter or more, or lines coming out of it, then your insurance company covers it. And so one of the ways that the glass company can make a little extra money is to replace the blades for a nominal charge. So that's definitely a good one. Scrap Rodriguez, welcome. Great to have you here. E-Way Steel is saying that 1 inch can take out a car, 6 inches can move an 18-wheeler. Under the right circumstances, yeah, an inch can do it, right? Some of these lighter, smaller vehicles can easily be floated with just an inch. And then if it's moving very quickly, yeah. The other thing, not just your vehicle, right? It's yourself. How many times have we seen people try to walk or, ford a river themselves and then get swept away? So very, very risky operation. So be careful with that. Really good discussions there, and a lot of good comments on things like tires and rain and being careful with it. I think we have discussed the safety feature enough. Thank you all very much. It was a good discussion, which leads us into our industrial metal discussion. So today we are talking aluminum and what's going on with aluminum. So, aluminum as an industrial metal is very dependent on economic forces, manufacturing forces, what's going on in the global markets. It is also highly dependent on places where it is mined and processed. I think most of you probably know that aluminum comes from an ore called bauxite, virgin aluminum, and it requires a tremendous amount of energy to get aluminum, however you want to say it, out of the original bauxite ore. So you need this in order to produce virgin aluminum economically. You want to have a good combination of bauxite ore and low cost energy. China is a classic example of a place that can put both of those together. And that's one of the reasons why they are a huge producer of aluminum. Some places like Australia have a lot of bauxite, but electricity, energy costs are a little bit high. So they actually ship a lot of their bauxite to, China, places where they can produce the aluminum. So you've got this interesting combination of factors that can make the production of raw or virgin aluminum either too costly or, can drive a lot of the market prices. Plus, once you have produced that aluminum, either in ingots or sheet aluminum or cast, you need to get it to the manufacturers that are going to turn it into something. So now you need to have a market for the aluminum. Now, what that means is you've got bauxite or aluminum and the products that are made out of aluminum getting shipped all over the world. All over the world, because some places are really good at making stuff. Some places don't have the bauxite. Some places have good electricity. Some places have done such a good job of recycling their aluminum that they're taking the recycled aluminum and they're merging it with virgin aluminum in order to make it more economical. You've got all these factors that are involved in what's going on with the aluminum markets. And as Ralph points out, aluminum is the most common metal on Earth. There's a lot of it out there. It's really the cost of turning bauxite into aluminum that drives the cost of the product. So lots of aluminum. And in the recycling world, for those of us that are in the recycling world, aluminum comes in the form of cans, aluminum products, sheet aluminum, cast aluminum, MLC, EC. And so you want to get familiar with how your yard buys it. And then if there is any ferrous material attached to it, it's what they call dirty aluminum. And, your yard may have different grades depending upon how dirty the aluminum is, how much ferrous material is hanging on. So anyway, let's get on to looking at what's happening with aluminum prices. So this is the 1-year chart. So we're looking at a year of prices, and each one of the candlesticks is 1 day. And if we look, we're going to zoom in here, and we're going to see what's going on from, April through now. Got a certain amount of volatility going on here. What were we up to? We were maxing out at $27.69 a ton. We were down at $22.20 a ton. There's a certain amount of variance in there. If we look at the latest candlesticks here, it looks like aluminum is going to be coming up. But hey, how much? It may not be coming up that much more because a lot of unusual things going on right now in the market. So not really, there's a certain amount of what is going to be driving all these prices. Let's look at the 5-year. We can see that aluminum had a real nice spike back in 22. And, now we're down here in this range. If we look at the 10-year, well, there's that spike in 22. That was a really good year for aluminum. And a lot of us were very active in the aluminum scrap at that point, and we were doing pretty good with our aluminum back then. We're still doing kind of okay with aluminum. We're better than we were, as we were going into and dealing with with COVID, but we're not anywhere near where we were back in 22, are we? 25-year history, look at that. These prices back in 22, those were maxed out. I mean, that's the most aluminum's going for most of us in our lifetimes. We are up at good levels for aluminum right now. We're doing pretty good for aluminum. That sort of leads to what to do with your aluminum. My plan for aluminum and the way that I treat aluminum on a regular basis for shark scrapper is that it is what I refer to as a cash flow metal. So I will sell my aluminum as it accumulates to a level that's worth taking in. All right, so it's very useful for me to keep the aluminum moving is the best way I can put it. I'll get a bin full and I'll take it in. I'll spend a little bit of time trying to clean the aluminum, the dirty aluminum, to get a bit more money for it. But I don't really hang on to aluminum the way I will copper. Copper is one of those the metal that I will keep a strategic reserve behind in order to, take advantage of what could be very long-term price increases. But aluminum being such an interesting metal for the industrial market, I just keep selling it. I'll hit the highs when they're high. I'll deal with the lows when they're low. That's just the way it's going to go. HH Recycling, welcome. Great to have you here. Aluminum, cash flow market for me. Cash flow metal for me. I keep it separated by the cast, the sheet. Well, actually, I need to take a look at what my local yard is doing, because, in fact, I looked at the prices for one of my local yards now, because I've got to get used to what's going on here in this environment that I'm in now. And let's see, they're doing sheet and cast is the same price at 55 cents a pound. MLC at 60 cents a pound, and cans at 60 cents a pound. So I'm curious how that corresponds to what you all are getting where you're located, especially if you're here in the U.S., because there's some good, you're right here in the U.S., so I'm always curious to see how this compares with my other U.S. scrappers. But it's those prices are, they're what I'm going to get. And so for me to say they're good or they're bad is kind of immaterial, because they are what is being paid locally. So, that's what we're dealing with. And your local yards, as with all their metals, they have to be able to sell it. They have to be able to sell it to make money. And depending upon how far they have to ship it is going to drive a lot of their costs. Excuse me. Well, had a bit of a tickle going on there in the throat. So, that brings us to the interesting discussion with our scrap yards. You think about what are the costs that our scrap yards are dealing with when they're trying to set the prices that they pay us for bringing in scrap. We all want more money, right? We want more value for our scrap. And the scrap yard, well, many of them have actually set what they're going to make maybe months or a year in advance. They've negotiated prices with a mill or a foundry. And that mill or foundry has told them, we will pay you this much money if you can provide us X amount every week, every month, every quarter. It all depends on how it was negotiated. And so they have to meet that criteria or they can get a severe penalty. So sometimes what that means is that the yard will actually pay you a lot better. And then maybe even if they're going to not make as much money because they need to meet the contract that they've negotiated. And if they don't meet that contract, then they can lose a lot of money. So that can drive the prices, what we get paid as scrappers, even more than what's going on in the base price, the spot price for any of these metals. So all of these things play into what our scrap yards are paying us. The transportation costs are huge. And, I'm up in the mountains now. So, my scrap yards are, having to truck the materials, over and around and through mountains, whether they're heading to the East Coast or they're heading up north, those shipping costs can be pretty steep. I also recently learned, still got a tickle. I wonder what's going on here. I also recently learned that they have some challenges when it comes to using the train system. The owner of one of the yards was telling me that he has a railhead right there at his yard, but he says he very rarely ships anything by rail anymore, because what will happen is he will be very careful with how much he puts on the rail car, because the rail car is weight limited. And then they will haul that train to a yard that's on another side of a mountain, many miles away. And then they will send it back to him because they'll say it was overweight. Now, tell me that makes any sense. They've already carried that car over a mountain or two to get it to a place where they could weigh it and then send it back to him because it was overweight. He said it's ridiculous. It costs him weight. He said it, when it works great because he saves money. But when it doesn't work, it costs him probably more than what he saves. So, so he has decided that he just very rarely ships anything by rail anymore. He's going by trucks because they give him more flexibility. He doesn't have to deal with a lot of these challenges. Plus, he can weigh the trucks right there at his place. So he knows how much weight is going in that truck, and that way they know that they're not overloading that truck. Most scrap yards are legal scales, so the trucks will get their ticket right there, and that ticket is frequently necessary so that if they get pulled over by the state police, they can show how much they're carrying, what their weight is. That's all part of safety on the highways and things of that nature. He should scrap the trains. I haven't seen any scrap train cars at his place, but he did have a scrap airplane fuselage. So he had an airplane fuselage that he was working on. Apparently the plane busted at the airport, and they cut up into chunks and brought it. And so he was working on that. But you know what? Speaking of that, I've seen some videos about scrap operations that specialize in trains, where they take the train apart, or they fix up the locomotive and resell it, or they scrap the entire locomotive, or they pull the big diesel engines out of the locomotives and refurbish them for other uses. So, that's a really interesting kind of thing to watch. Roger says, shipping scrap by rail used to be abundant in central Illinois till about 20 years ago. I remember as a kid watching car after car scrap train going through town. Yeah. The whole train business has kind of morphed over time. And it's kind of interesting how things that used to be very economical by train aren't as economical anymore and are moving by truck. Where trains are economical versus where they're not economical. You could probably get a PhD in economics of transportation or transportation engineering or something like that, just studying the train industry. And there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time studying the train industry because it is such a huge economic driver in this country and many other countries. I mean, here in the U.S., our rail system is marginal at best compared to some nations. Some nations are just doing such a great job with how they use trains and how efficient and good they are with their train systems. Truck Fan says locomotive parts actually have a decent resale value sometimes. Oh yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of times when those parts are necessary for the railroad companies themselves, or because they're such high grade, heavy duty steel kind of things, they can be used for a lot of other purposes. I remember when I was still active in the oceanographic industry, we would frequently use the rollers from the train cars. I don't want to say wheels because they're not wheels, but the rollers. They would make great weights for packages that we were putting on the bottom of the ocean. Relatively compact. You could put a lot of them on the deck of a survey ship or an oceanographic survey vessel. You could easily use them as anchors to put stuff down on the bottom. And, they're not that terrible for the environment because what's going to happen? Eventually, they're just going to rust away. So, yeah. I wonder how much reverse vending machine would be worth as scrap. Let's see. I have never scrapped a vending machine. I don't know. Anybody out there ever scrapped a vending machine? You probably got you're going to have some motors in there. Depending upon the age of the machine, you're going to have, wiring and cable and motors and stuff. So yeah, that would be kind of interesting. Yeah, Bruce brings up a good point. Warren Buffett has been investing in trains. He's, but it's very select train lines that Buffett is investing in. So he's very careful. He's done a lot of good math on the train lines and which ones are properly managed, making money, not making money. So yeah, really, really important to pay attention to what Buffett will invest in. Yeah, it's train lines are definitely out there. Okay, so let's see. We have talked about silver. We've talked about our safety note. We've talked about aluminum, our industrial metal. I do want to touch on something real quick before we get to our stock market discussion. And this is an interesting one for, I don't know how many of you are doing live streams. I know some of you do. I'm having a real hard time with a tickle in my throat today. I apologize. I don't know what's going on with that. I just got an email from StreamYard. StreamYard makes the software that I use to run this live stream. It's a very good software package. But it turns out the StreamYard was recently acquired by, they were bought by one group and then sold to another group. And unfortunately, this other group has become more of a business organization and less customer focused. So good morning, Andrew. Great to have you here, man. Andrew is coming at us from New Zealand and just waking up. So great to have you here, bud. So I just wanted to kind of throw this out there because I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do here. I was on one of StreamYard's professional plans before, one of their paid plans. And it was costing me $240 a year, which didn't seem too bad. But now, if you look at the plan that they're going to move me to, and here, let's do this. So the plan that they're going to move me to is called their core plan. And that's $35.99 a month. So that means I'm now going to be paying $432 a year for my StreamYard. Now they claim that I'm getting extra value in doing this. So they say that I still get all the stuff that I was getting before. Okay, that's nice. Then they say that I'm also going to get all this other stuff: dark mode, camera shapes, 1080p sharing, pre-recorded streams, full 1080p, reusable studios. By the way, that's actually something that could be interesting. Reusable studios. Essentially what that means is I set up a studio. It's a link, and that link will be used for every one of my live streams. So, where Irish comes up and invites people to join his stream, and he's got to put the link up there because the link changes every time he goes live. Well, he wouldn't have to necessarily do that anymore. He would just tell the regulars to come up on his panel. Here's the link. This is what we're going to use moving forward. And he wouldn't have to keep putting the link up there every time. So maybe something to that. And then these other packages that are even more expensive, well, these are for the big time YouTubers, the Mr. Beasts of the world that are out there with a lot of money that they can put towards it, but also have a reason to have teams behind them and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to look around. I don't know, quite honestly, I don't know how this compares to other packages. Do I want to go down the road of learning how to use some other package, some other software, or am I willing to pay the extra money because then I don't have to relearn anything. I already know how to use this. It's there, and we just keep going. I don't know. Anyway, not a big deal for you all, unless for some of you that do live streaming. Just something to pay attention to. All right, so now let's get rid of that and let's get on to our stock discussion for today. The first company that I want to bring to your attention is one that a lot of us here in the United States are very familiar with, Verizon. I know they're international. I used to have Verizon for my phone provider. When I moved up here, Spectrum, which has it's kind of like the big player here where I live. They offered me a great deal to roll my phones, my cable, my internet, roll it all up into one package, and I'm paying roughly half what I was paying down in Florida when I was using Comcast and Verizon. So really good deal. I couldn't walk away from it. So I'm not on Verizon anymore, but I never had any issues with Verizon. And yeah, David, I've already had some issues there, so I get you, man. I understand. Unfortunately, they're the big player here, so I'm a little bit stuck. We'll see how this plays out. So anyway, Verizon does satisfy my requirements as an investment company to consider. They are what I refer to as a Div 1. That means they've had 17 years of increasing dividends per share, with the exception of 16 going to 17 right here. But otherwise, every year they have increased their dividends per share. Remember, I'm looking for 17 years of increasing cash flow per share, earnings per share, or dividends per share. I will allow one flat year. So they're qualified. And that dividend yield is pretty good at 6.5%. I mean, that's hard to shake a stick at. So, and that price, $41.49 a share, is not terrible. Not terrible, but it's a little bit up there. But hey, for 6.5%, that's not bad. So if you're looking to add some sort of communication, type company to your portfolio, Verizon might be something to think about. Plus, they're a decent company. I mean, they really are. I never had any trouble at all with them. And if I have trouble with Spectrum, I have no trouble at all going back to Verizon. So definitely somebody to consider right there. Now, again, let me emphasize, I am not a financial counselor. I am not a licensed stock trader or portfolio manager. I do this on my own. This is the tool and the process that I use. So just, take that as it is. I'm just sharing with you information to help you. I encourage you to do your due diligence before you make any investments. Truck fan, take care. We'll see you later on. Now, the other end is Comcast. Comcast is a internet provider. Some of you probably know Comcast, and many of you maybe have your emails through Comcast. They were my primary provider in Florida. Comcast is interesting because look at this. They are qualified on my qualifications for cash flow per share, earnings per share, and dividends per share. 17 years they have increased their cash flow per share, earnings per share, with the exception of 1 year, okay, 19 to 20 right in here. And all of those 17 years, they have increased the dividends per share. So they've been taking care of their shareholders. Now, it's only 3%, 3.1% right now, and it's on $40.25. So, you might be saying, well, Verizon offers me almost twice that. Why would I go with Comcast? Well, they're two different companies. Verizon is cell phones. Comcast is broader internet networking kind of organization. And they're actually, if you look at this as how well they manage themselves as a company, you got to believe that they're managing themselves really well as a company when they can put up this kind of performance 17 straight years. So it's really something to think about. Now, I am not going to buy into Comcast because I need to rebuild my stock portfolio after having sold off a lot of it to get into a cash position for this move. And right now, I'm not planning on buying into Comcast at this point, but they are qualified by my criteria. The last company I want to look at is a name that we are all familiar with from stuff that we take apart on a regular basis, and that is Cisco Systems. I mean, just think about it. Those of you that watch E-Waste Ben, you know how excited he gets when he sees a Cisco system. He just loves getting hold of Cisco stuff, and for good reason. It's good quality electronic equipment. And when you take it apart, there's usually good value in the equipment that you're taking apart. So we do like that name Cisco from the scrapping perspective. However, they are not qualified as an investment by my standard of 17 years of increasing cash flow, earnings, or dividends per share. Now, if you look at why they're not qualified for the dividends per share, you've got this period here before they were paying dividends. So 08, 09, and 10, they were not paying any dividends. What does that mean? Well, in a year, things will get a little bit closer to them being, in our qualified list. So a year from now, if they keep on performing well, they could be qualified. But they're only paying 3.2% on their dividend yield, and that's on $50.79. So what's the reality here? You're not buying Cisco for the dividend. You're buying Cisco because you believe they're a good company and they're going to continue to perform, and you're going to make money at some point in the future when you sell them. That's an entirely different reason to trade in Cisco or to invest in Cisco. I don't invest that way. For me, I'm a dividend buy and hold dividend investor. So Cisco is definitely not on my list, and they're not qualified even if I was thinking about buying. So I bring it up because we all love Cisco products, and it's interesting to see how they perform as a company. So let's see, what kind of comments have we had about all of these? Beep, 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 beep. We saw the comment about being careful with Spectrum, and it's some very good points there. They'll nickel and dime you after the introductory rate goes away. Definitely got to pay attention for that. So we'll see how that plays out. It just kind of sucks that I couldn't stick with Comcast coming up here. Comcast just isn't here. I would love for them to be here because I had really good experiences with Comcast. And on the rare occasions that I had trouble with Comcast, they did a very reasonable job of making good on it or fixing it. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Roger says he was with Verizon for over 20 years. He switched to T-Mobile for their internet package, and he's been pleased so far. Okay, yep, very good. Very good. And HH says he's out of service area, so we'll hope you get back in pretty soon there, HH. Talk to you later, man. Be careful. And Daniel Houston said he put up a new video. Oh, E-Waste Bend. Yeah, I saw that about the sun systems. Man, I tell you what, was making my mouth water looking at those sun systems as he was taking them apart. There was some RAM in there, wasn't there? Man. Yep. And if Irish hasn't seen that video yet, Irish, don't go look at it right now because we don't want you hyperventilated before you go live here in a little bit. You're going to want to see that video by E-Waste Bend today with those sun systems. That was pretty nice. All right. So, we've had a really, really good discussion today. The progress on SharkCage 3.0 continues. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the pod is coming back up from Florida, not back up, but coming up from Florida. It's supposed to be delivered tomorrow. I'm a little bit miffed with the people from pod because they were supposed to get hold of me yesterday. They say they contact you the day before delivery to tell you the time frame that it's going to be delivered. Well, I seriously doubted anybody was going to call me on Sunday. I didn't hear anything from them yesterday. So, I'm like, so I have no idea what time the pod is showing up tomorrow. And I have to have it emptied and picked up, the next day. That's the rules of this place where I'm storing things right now. So I've got the pickup scheduled for Tuesday. So if they show up late on Monday, I'm going to be working as late as I can in the evening to get that thing unloaded because it's got to be unloaded. So it has the potential to be a late night, depending upon what time it gets delivered. And I would really like to know what time it's going to get delivered because I don't want to have to sit there all day waiting for them to show up so that I can open the gate, get them in, and that kind of stuff. Plus, I've got a couple. I've got one of these college hunks kind of companies on standby, so that if I find that I just can't get things going fast enough, that they'll send over a couple of strong backs to help me get stuff moved. So I'm kind of a little bit miffed with pods right now that they weren't more communicative with me the way they said they were going to be. The other things that are going on, haven't had much luck with the real estate agent finding me anything. I think that part of the issue is, a commercial real estate agent, they're used to dealing with larger companies that have bigger budgets and they're not as cash flow restricted. The guy's a really nice guy. Got nothing against him. He's listens to me. I think he's trying, but I gotta, hey, it makes sense. If he's got other clients where he's going to make a lot more money off of them, then I understand they're getting more of his time and attention than I'm getting. So I've been doing a lot of the research myself, trying to find a place, and got a couple of interesting leads on companies, businesses that have extra space at their business. So sometime this week, I'm going to go look at one of these companies. They've got some extra space. We talked about what it is I do, and they're okay with that. So I'm going to go see the space that they have, and I might be subleasing some space from an established business, which is a very viable option for me. Even if we only do it for a few months until I can find something more permanent, that's fine. So having said all of that, I tell you, it's been a great discussion today. I've had a lot of fun looking at the comments, sharing the comments, talking about what's been going on. If you have a particular precious metal or industrial metal that you'd like me to address, drop me a line sometime during the week. You all know my email, sharkscrapper@gmail.com. And in the meantime, we're going to get ready to head across the pond to Ireland and join our friends Scrapping Irish and carry on the conversation and the fun. You never know what's going to pop up during that discussion. And given our little bit of a talk about all that RAM that E-Waste Ben came up with today, there's no telling what condition Scrapping Irish is liable to be in when we get over there. So I will see you all over on the other side of the pond. And if I don't see you over in Ireland, we'll see you next week. Be safe and have a good one.